Benny, we're going first. After. Then Lee, then Wenham, then Hamilton.
Okay. All right. Good evening. All right. Can people hear me?
Test.
You guys hear me? Yes? No? HW Cam, I'm getting no's that people say they cannot hear me.
There it goes.
Better?
Here it comes.
Okay. Can everyone hear me now? Okay. Good evening. What we're going to do is we have several different boards here. I'm going to go around and have every board that has a quorum called to order, and then we'll get the meeting started. Work for everyone? Okay.
We don't have a quorum.
Excuse me?
We don't have a quorum.
Do you anticipate a quorum?
I sure do.
Do you want us to wait a couple minutes?
I know Ben and Karen will not be here tonight.
Well, what?
Ben and Karen will not be here tonight. I do not know about Deirdre.
Let's just go.
Maybe go around and let them call last. Give it a few more minutes.
Okay. Is that okay for you, Peter?
We actually don't really need a quorum.
Excuse me?
Just hot in here.
Just go ahead.
I can't hear you.
We're good.
Okay. All right.
Hot fast with it.
At this point, I call to order the meeting of the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee at 6:35 p.m. Let's go this way to Wenham.
That's Hamilton.
I'm sorry, Hamilton. Excuse me, Hamilton.
Hamilton Select Board does not have a quorum.
Okay. Hamilton FinCom.
Hamilton FinCom does have a quorum. There are 3 of us present.
All right. And can you call your meeting to order?
I'll call the meeting to order. Thank you.
Wenham FinCom.
Yeah, Wenham FinCom, we have a quorum. We can start at 6:35, as you said.
Great. And I will be happy when, if and when new members arrive, we can call those meetings to order as needed. So first off on our agenda this evening, we will have a period of public comment. Can everyone in the members of the public, can you all hear me? Okay.
It's much louder.
Good. As you all know, this is a sort of an unusual meeting. This is the Quintuple Board meeting. It's not our typical meeting. Various boards and committees in town do their public comment in different ways. This evening, we're going to do it. I'm going to explain how we're going to do it this evening, and I understand that that might be different than the way that you might experience other boards and committees, but it's the way that we're going to handle public comment this evening. Okay. So we're going to do it here at the beginning of the meeting, and if people have public comment, what I'm going to ask is that you approach the podium when we begin. You approach the podium, you'll be offered 3 minutes to offer your comments. I do ask that before you start speaking that you give your name, and please spell your name so that your last name so that we can get it correct in the minutes. We will time the 3 minutes, and we will ask you to stop at the end of 3 minutes. I also just want to make everyone aware that this meeting, this Quintuple Board meeting we have, it's a business meeting of the boards. It's a meeting that's held in public for transparency so that you have the opportunity to see the meeting, but it's not a public hearing. It's a meeting in which the boards are going to get some presentations and the boards are going to have the opportunity to ask questions. So the public comment is going to be at the beginning, and after the public comment period is over, I'm going to ask you to sit down, and you are absolutely welcome to stay and watch the rest of the meeting. Okay? Did I get everything in there? I didn't say this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on HWCam. Amy, would you be willing to be our timer?
Sure.
Okay. So at this point, if anyone from the public would like to offer a public comment, I'd ask you to approach the podium.
Good evening. Stephen McWhorter, 18 Cunningham Drive, MCWHIRTER. The comment's going to be about the Cutler School building project. I've seen the numbers over the summer. I've seen the lot. Majority of the voters in Hamilton, I can't speak for Wenham, don't want the consolidated school, district-wide, grades 1 through 5. But the numbers are perplexing. The last select board meeting, finance department told us what was advertised in the survey was 70 million. We might get 50 million. I have the numbers in the notes from the executive board from the state. And it appears that they're basing all this on 117 million, which is the building costs. That's what we'll get reimbursed on. So there's $50 million of, we don't know what that is, adds up to project costs. So the citizens really want to know, what's going on. And the differential, $50 million, you can build, that's what it costs to build the Manchester by the Sea Elementary School. And the biggest part of it is the last sentence. And it says, you totally intend to put it on the flattest area of the Cutler lot. It's all ledge over there. That's an underground stream. The town does know that. We have no idea why you would be putting $150 million school. The size of this project for the residents, it's the size of the high school. I have a plan here to put a $66 million school on that lot if the citizens, the parents, and what's good for the children want that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Peter Fisher. Live in Hamilton. The last name is Fisher. At the last opportunity to speak, I asked for the ability to compare costs of rehabilitating the 3 schools instead of consolidating them. And Mr. Tracy kindly approached me and gave me the opportunity to give a call to help me find those costs posted, the estimates posted on the website. I did not call Mr. Tracy. I did look for those costs, didn't find them. I would like to see them posted with the names of the contractors who quoted on rehabilitating the schools as an alternative to consolidating. And so we can do comparison shopping. I would also recommend that we vote very soon instead of waiting much longer as towns, as communities, so that we can stem the flow of costs for surveys that are ignored by the officials of the towns. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other public comment at this time? Okay. Thank you. So at this time, we're going to close the opportunity for public comment. Is he going now? Before the architects?
I think he's hooking up.
You-
I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, next, Mr. Tracy's going to approach the screen. I do know that some of the members of the public wanted to be sure that they could see the screen, and it's a challenging room. If you want to take the opportunity to move so that you can see the screen, please feel free to move around the room so that you can see. I do want to make sure that board members can see.
Trying to do this without my glasses. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. We wanted to give all of the boards in town the opportunity to see progress to date on the elementary school project. Really just an overview, just like we are doing with our budgets this evening. It's a kind of first glance overview, but we wanted to make sure everybody has had an opportunity to see what's taken place in the schematic design phase. We'll talk a little bit about where we've been, where we're going, and how the process works from this point on. So we'll do a little project overview, talk about community outreach, review the schedule that has been laid out for us by MSBA. We'll do a little site plan overview, so show you some of the building concept designs, and then talk a little bit about the change in MSBA reimbursement, which has been fairly substantial since we began the process. Talk about next steps, and then adjourn that section of the meeting. So I'd like to introduce the project team members that are here. From JCJ, the architectural firm, we have Doug Roberts, Alicia Caratano, Peter Morgan, Emily Sarnecki, Rebecca Brown, and James, no James tonight. Oh, there he is, James Emmanuel, sorry. And then from PMA, we have Kevin Nigrow and Nick Massey. They are the owner's project managers working on the project along with the district. Some of the project goals are related to really the guiding principles that we came up with many months ago back in the visioning sessions. We had 5 visiting sessions that helped bring 50 or 60 people together to talk about what it looked like, what it meant, what type of education how education needed to change, and some of the issues that we looked at is how to really build something that would meet the needs of as many kids as possible across the district. Really opening up the opportunity for communities to use the space and to be part of the space, also for intergenerational learning throughout the building, especially with the younger kids, and then develop more opportunities for peer connections with the way the building is designed, creating a sense of belonging, integrating play within and throughout the building, and then, excuse me, giving kids choice and agency was part of those conversations, and helping kids to be able to decide on different directions they would like to take as they work through the school during the school day. And then bringing the outside in and the inside out, and really trying to help make some connections to the building in things like dashboards that kids can look at that measure energy consumption or airflow, so that they can do some of their STEM work related to something that may be happening within the building. And then really having flexible space, so what, when, where, and why. What we learned through COVID is education doesn't necessarily have to happen within the 4 walls of the classroom, and this gives us the opportunity to look differently and design around other spaces other than the 4 walls of the classroom. Nick Massey will talk about community outreach.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy. How you doing, folks? My name is Nick Massey. I am part of the owner's project management team for this process. Jumping into some community outreach, what we've done is the project team in the district has spent a lot of time and effort to make sure that we're getting out to the community in several different aspects. We've been at your ski and skate sale. We've met the mothers group. We have been to school committee workshops. We have been to the Winter Boutique. And we've held a number of meetings that are open to the public. One of the main goals for community outreach is to make sure that the community is updated with the most up-to-date information for the project and the most accurate information for the project. Some upcoming community outreach we have. We are here tonight at the Quintuple board meeting. On the 7th, we will be back at your holiday boutique at the Winthrop School, which I am personally a big fan of. And the 10th, we plan to have a neighborhood and abutters meeting at the Cutler School. And on the 22nd of January, we will have our community forum number 4. Reason for the community forum number 4 being over the year is we are waiting for the estimates, the updated estimates to come in to be able to make the conversation and the information being presented more productive. Project timeline here. This is a high-level project timeline, really what shows coming up. In 2025, the 2 big highlights here are the Hamilton Wenham Residents Town Meeting on April 5th, where there'll be a vote for this project, and on the ballot on April 10th. Just to highlight just some dates down the road as well. Construction would be... Sure.
Excuse me, please sit down. Please sit down. You are not recognized. Please sit down. Hold on, hold on, just 1 second. Please, just let me speak for 1 second. So the reason that I went through that explanation at the beginning of the meeting was to be clear that this is an opportunity for the people who are on the board to ask questions. Okay? I understand, but these people that are here, right? Are we good?
We're good, because I just found out the mailers went out today, and I am in a butter, and I do have the right to find out about these things before I come to a meeting. But he's
To be,
got something scheduled. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Hamilton voter.
Thank you.
For your transparency.
This next slide, I'm going to hand over to JCJ.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alicia Caratano, your project manager from JCJ Architecture. And our team is really excited to be here for a few moments tonight to give you an overview on the progress to date and all the hard work that's been done with the district and the school building committee regarding the schematic design for your new elementary school for all your young learners from grades 1 through 5 in both Hamilton and Wenham. And the foundation of this design is the educational program that we heard Superintendent Tracy speak about so eloquently. And it's really, really important that everyone here tonight understands that what we're showing you is a snapshot in time. Design is a process that evolves as we go through the project, and throughout, we're going to continue to make sure that we're aligning both your educational plan with your budget throughout the process. So as we're going to start with an overview by James, our landscape architect, then move into an exterior discussion with Peter, one of our designers, followed up by some images of what the new school would look like by Emily. So thank you.
Hello, good evening. I'm James Emanuel, landscape architect with the project team. And the slide you have before you is the what we'd call the overview of the existing conditions of the site. And just to get everyone oriented, the building is the white object located to the east side of the site. And you can see the current access loops for bus and also for cars as they come off of Asbury Street. The green space to the northwest of the site, consisting of the open fields. We've got some topography on the site as well, too. We are at a low point of about elevation 62 and a high point up to elevation 90. So that's about a 28-foot grade change over the entirety of the site, sloping from a low end by Woodlamead up to the high end towards the back corner of the site. And we've got a number of utilities, as you can see on your package and in the slide here, that enter the site from Asbury Street, among these being the septic system and all the other electric and water and typical utilities. So as we go into the proposed site plan, we've really worked hard to come up with a plan that's efficient, a plan that's safe, functional, and inspiring in some ways too. So with the efficiency, we're looking at the siting of the building. So you can see the location of the building in the area that was formerly the green space. Now you can see kind of in the red dashed line the footprint of the existing building. So you see the relationship of those two, and that's important so that we can see how the building relates on site to where it is now. The efficiency of this comes in the phasing. We can build that building while keeping the other building online. We have the loop drive that goes around the building now where it allows for access for public safety, for emergency access in vehicles. And it also allows us to preserve some of the septic system to keep the existing building online as well. For the safety and design, we did coordinate in meetings with first responders as well as extensive coordinations with our traffic engineers to find out the best points of access and egress from Asbury Street onto the site, as well as the loop for the cars, the vehicles, and the loop for the bus, which you'll see in the yellow line right there. So that's the bus access loop, and the blue line is the car vehicle access loop. We've got a parking lot and the loop road for car drop-off. One of the main goals was to keep cars off of Asbury Street, and we've got a long loop road that allows for us to do that, allows for queuing during pickup and drop-off times. We also have accessible routes to playing fields, accessible routes to the play spaces, to the basketball playgrounds, all those kinds of things, and a nice route throughout the site as well too, keeping that within the parameters of ADA compliance. And we're also aiming to preserve the natural buffers that exist around the property, the trees, and the natural topography as well too. So the site is really designed with the low point at the west remaining kind of where it is, and the building designed to integrate with the existing topography. So we're trying to be sensitive to that, as well as using some of the artifacts and some of the materials that are existing in the site too, so that we're bringing some of what's there into the new building to maintain the school's, a bit of the school's identity. So that's the overview of the site plan, and I can turn it off now to Peter to talk about the architectural.
Evening, everybody. Peter Morgan with JCJ Architecture. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the concept behind this building and how we're organizing it on the site. One of the most important sort of features of this project and goals for the district and the design team is to create a building that, an elementary school that will provide equity for all the students in the district. I know Alicia talked about grades 1 to 5. They're all going to matriculate through this program. So it's really providing the same educational opportunities for all the students that are in Hamilton and Wenham as they come up through those grades. Really important for us. So that grade reconfiguration allows that to happen on this property. We're talking about up to 740 students in the building. So really important to us is creating a sense of ownership of those spaces, and we're designing this around the concept of learning neighborhoods, where each neighborhood in those yellow blocks in this scheme are essentially smaller zones where the kids really spend most of their time during the day. So if you're in grade 1, you would have that one learning neighborhood that you're associated with most of the day, so that they have a sense of belonging and identity and ownership of those spaces. So that's really important to design the building around that concept. So those learning neighborhoods are really sort of feeding into and controlled or collected by that yellow band that is what we're calling Cutler Boulevard. It's essentially a circulation spine that those learning neighborhoods sort of feed into and connect to the community spaces as well. So we have nice segregation between the learning neighborhoods and the community spaces, so you can use this after hours. And we're going to get into that when we look at the floor plans a bit. Another thing that's happening in these learning neighborhoods is we're integrating special education programming. So special education is not in their own wing down some corridor by themselves. They're actually embedded into the program. And we think that's definitely important for us to get that program sort of integrated into the everyday life of all the students in the building. Let's see, next slide. So we're going to drop down and look a little bit more in detail at the floor plans. I'm going to try to use my pointer from this angle. I don't know how well that's going to work, though. So James talked about the site and how you sort of come to the building, where the main entrances are. We have a main, I'm going to try to do this here. So the main entrance from the plaza side is right here. Directly adjacent to the main entrance in those purple spaces are the administrative offices and nurse's office. So that's right at the entrance. There's a transaction window for security. There's a controlled vestibule so people can't get into the building without being buzzed in. Directly across from that main entrance is that gray zone is the circulation spine. That's Cutler Boulevard. So that's the thing that sort of brings all the people through the building, this main circulation area. So within a stone's throw of this entry, we have all the community zones, the gymnasium, the gymnatorium, the cafeteria, the music spaces. There's the media centers directly across from the entrance, as well as a shared conference room. So there's a lot of sort of public functions right near the front door of this project. Just to the left of the main entrance, that's the first classroom neighborhood. And we talked a little bit about the classroom neighborhood. Each classroom neighborhood is essentially core academic classrooms, special ed programs, and also teacher support spaces. And Emily's going to talk a little bit more about breakout areas and how we're going to activate those places and really serve the students and the particular needs the way we teach kids these days. So if we go to the right, the main entrance past the administrative offices, there's a stairway that gets us up to the second level. There's also an elevator for ADA accessibility. So we're going to the second level now. The second level is comprised of 3 more learning neighborhoods. There's also the STE classrooms in yellow, let's see, right there. So all the specials, like there's kind of a STEAM hub at the center of the building where we have arts, music, science, and technology. And those are accessed from those neighborhoods sort of equidistant. So students have about the same travel distances from their individual neighborhoods. Also on this floor, we have some special ed program, and the art spaces are at the back there. So if we go to the third floor, is really the last and final classroom neighborhood at that 5th level. So we're going to take a look at the exterior. Just an idea of how this is starting to look. This mass here is the first neighborhood that we looked at that's sort of directly adjacent to the main entry. And what we're really doing is trying to reference forms that are familiar to kids. Residential forms, agrarian forms, like the stables and barns that are around this area. So it's really kind of a familiar, comfortable kind of design. And also using materials they're familiar with as well. Brick is on the existing Cutler School. You can see to the right there, that's the main entrance, and the STE classrooms above. James also talked a little bit about the site design. At the entrance, we're looking to have sort of a natural, organic sort of plaza with boulders and really using the existing rock outcrops as a design feature as well. So you can see there's the canopy. There's a canopy that gives students cover when they're going to and from buses. And the main entrance is there next to the main administrative offices. And then Emily's going to talk a little bit about the interior design.
A little short. Good evening, everybody. I'm Emily Zarnecki with JCJ Architecture. So we're really excited to share some images of how the interior of the spaces can transform the learning environment. As you know, we're creating this new building. We're really thinking about what's important to the district, what's important to students and staff as they're entering the building. It's really the first impression when you walk into the school. And creating a warm and welcoming environment is really key to the students entering as well as having the community. Because this is a multifunctional type of building. It's not only used for school and academics, but by the community as well. So as you're walking in, you have this light-filled space, you have warm wood tones, durable finishes on the floor like tile and wall tile to give you that durability for over time. Thinking about how the building as a teaching tool, as Eric had mentioned, integrating sustainable elements and creating like an energy dashboard with a, this works, digital monitor at the entry. So it's something that not only the students can interact with, but the community can see how those sustainable elements in the building are really working. It's a great place to introduce graphic imagery as well, things that tie back to the school culture and the community that can be tailored to those school elements. Here we have that community stair. So as you walk in, you see that stair that leads you up to the 2nd level, but it's also another opportunity for gathering. We have bench seating underneath, and this can become another great learning opportunity. Moving up to the 2nd level, this is at the top of the stairs looking back. This is looking down at Cutler Boulevard as well as the 2nd floor main corridor. Here you have those STEAM programs with a lot of visibility. So now we're putting learning on display. Kids can see what other students are doing in those programs and get excited about different robotics or video production that's happening in those spaces. We have a lot of natural daylight here. You can see from above coming down. So it's a really light-filled space. And thinking about even just safety and security in the space, we have these mesh railings, which give you a sense of openness, but is also safe and secure for students who are walking by the open areas. Now we're walking in here, we have a great opportunity to introduce, again, some public and community spaces. With the cafeteria and the gymnatorium, we have an operable partition between the two spaces that can really open up and create this large open gathering space. Part of the idea here is that whether it's during school time for large activities or after school for performances, maybe it's an art show or a gathering, you can now open those spaces with that operable partition and be able to flow back and forth. It's really a great opportunity for learning. It's an adaptable and flexible space. Again, community use. Daylight, a lot of daylight, we keep talking about that. It's really important to bring daylight into these school environment spaces. So having controlled daylight where we can shut that light off with shades so that you minimize glare during performances, etc. And thinking about acoustics, sound is very important. So you can see we have a lot of acoustic panels and materials that will help mitigate the sound, whether you're having gymnasium, activities, or you're having a performance. So now moving into the smaller learning communities, giving you a sense of what those spaces could look like. We have widened corridors in this area, and this really allows for these spaces to be activated. You have connections back to the classrooms, so lots of visibility. Teachers can have eyes on the street, see what's going on. But kids can flow in and out, working with other students, working with paraprofessionals or other teachers, really having a space that they can move in and out. This is the idea is besides the first grade, it's a multi-grade opportunity. So this is a great place for mentorship, thinking about some of the older kids working with some of the younger kids. And really defining those breakout areas in the corridor using different colors and materials, really making it fun and playful and exciting. And each learning neighborhood could be a different main color, so you create wayfinding throughout. And it's really a very inclusive environment. And we're thinking about also compartmentalizing those different learning neighborhoods. So the students are really in these spaces primary with the students that they're working with each day. And then just moving into the classrooms, we're really thinking about adaptable environments, thinking about how we can connect back to nature as well. So a lot of daylight, windows down to the floor, so we're bringing the outdoors inside. We know how beneficial that is for students and their general learning. And then connecting back to some small group room. So we're really the district is thinking about how important neurodiversity and supporting all different students of different types of learning abilities. And so these types of spaces will be really beneficial for paraprofessionals and staff to do one-on-one or small group work directly connected to the classroom spaces. And with that, that's Kevin.
Good evening, my name is Kevin Nigro. I work for PMA Consultants, and I'm part of your Hamilton Wenham Owners Project Management team. And if you remember back, and I know you don't know the details, but to the slide that Nick showed, that's okay, I don't need that. Nope, thank you. We have completed our milestones and requirements of the two-phase feasibility study, our PDP and PSR, and we received board approval to move into the phase we're in now, which the MSBA calls the robust schematic design phase. And ultimately, the outcome of this phase will be a project scope, budget, and schedule agreement with the MSBA. And in that agreement, it'll outline what the financial participation for the grant from the MSBA will be. This slide represents some good news. It shows that when we started this program, just before we got hired, the MSBA was reimbursing communities $432 per square foot of eligible cost towards your project. In October, as we were in our PSR PDP phase, the feasibility, the MSBA board saw fit to recognize the increased cost of construction in Massachusetts and increase that eligible square foot cost to $605. And I'm pleased to report tonight that at the past August and October MSBA board meetings, they again voted to increase that eligible cost per square foot to $645 per square foot. So we'll be, and we've sent an email to the MSBA to confirm that our project scope and budget is happening after January 1st, 2025, and that we would be eligible for that new rate at $645 per square foot. So that represents quite an increase in the grant participation from the MSBA. We will be utilizing this square foot number to populate our total project cost budget worksheet, which we'll be reporting on at the next combined meeting, as our estimates are currently underway. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. So some of the next steps we have, there's an ongoing application approval process. Right now, there are two different estimators, one hired by JCJ and one hired by the owner's project manager. They will both do estimates on the project and then come together and compare their estimates. They have to be within 1% of each other when all is said and done. So they'll do an estimate review. The Mass Department of Education also has to review our special ed report. We're finalizing a report right now that has to be submitted to the state, specifically related to special education and special education spaces and how kids will be integrated into the school building. So those will be submitted on 12/19, and then from there it goes through the MSBA review and comment, where they look at the entire package. The last two packages we submitted were more than 1,800, 1,900 pages long. So there's a lot for them to go through. The Department of Education will also review and send comments that will come back to the team, and we'll work together to rectify any comments or issues that may pop up from those two groups. And then we're going to plan to have another community forum in January on the 22nd. And then we start looking at construction manager qualifications, responding to the comments from the Department of Education, responding to the comments from the MSBA. They usually have us submit a report at the end of their comment period, and then we'll work together with the teams to complete that report, execute a scope and budget agreement with the state, which basically says, yes, this is what it looks like in kind of real time, if you will, the actual cost versus the actual reimbursement, which is something I know people are excited to get to, or hoping to get there sooner rather than later. And then we get to the town meeting and votes that will occur in both towns in April. So that's really an overview. I really want to thank everybody for the opportunity to give the team time to present kind of where we're at, especially where we haven't been able to come to every board meeting and do a presentation. We thought this would be a good opportunity for us to get the team out, see who's who, and see some of the work to date. And really want to thank JCJ and PMA for the work that they've done to date. It is an arduous process. We meet constantly, know each other well, and really try to really work through the pieces of the puzzle, if you will, as they connect to kids and learning. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for that presentation and for an overview so that our town boards can have an overview of where we are. I would like to give an opportunity if anyone on the boards has a couple quick questions. Certainly, yes.
Yeah, John McGrath from the Hamilton FinCom. Over the last several FinCom meetings, we've actually spent some time looking at the costs, not only of the proposed project, but the 5 options that were reviewed by the school building committee. So we spent some time going through that. We also spent some time looking at some of the recent projects that were approved by the state. And we're going to continue to do that going forward. And I invite any sister boards or members to join us if you'd like to, because we'll drill down pretty deeply into this information. If you can't come to a meeting, we do record our FinCom meetings, and you can go on to our minutes, and there's a link in there, and you can listen to what our discussion has been. So we're spending a fair amount of time on the numbers, and we want to make that information as available as possible. The last couple of FinCom meetings, we've had some members of the public join us. So that information is readily available, and it's also on our website as well. But the one thing that I've learned is not just about numbers, it's about how the project has sort of responded to the concerns of the community. And if I go back to the spring, there was a large conversation around large school, small school. So we actually asked that topic be addressed, and because it's a valid concern. What I've learned, and Peter, you can help me out here if I go astray, but what I've learned is the neighborhoods, there are 8 neighborhoods in the building, and as the educators who listened to this, they talked about how the neighborhoods create that small school experience. inside this larger facility. So the conclusion that I've come to, as I've sort of learned about this, is financially, the numbers are the numbers, but the qualitative value of the neighborhoods inside this larger facility really hit home for me. And I urge everybody, committee members, members of the public, to study this neighborhood concept, because it really does address the large school, small school concept. So that's just learnings that I've come across over the last year and a half, and I urge people to come to our meetings, ask a lot of questions, and the school building committee meets. All the architects are there, the PMA project managers are there. So lots of opportunities to learn, digest, and interact. So I just wanted to share that out.
Thank you, John.
Folks.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you definitely need a mic.
Those mics are
It's
on.
impossible to hear otherwise.
Jared Ward, Wenham FinCom. I'm looking on the page that says guiding principle. It says new 740 student elementary school grades 1 through 5. I was trolling through the enrollment data. If my math is correct, we had in October 24, 445 students that fit that category in the school system, which is a decline from 2023, which was 452. Could somebody address the capacity assumption in the facility? I'm not a demographic expert, but I don't see a lot of population growth anytime soon in the next decade. I'm welcome to be convinced otherwise. And a follow-on question, where are the kindergartners going?
Two great questions, thank you. The population currently of 1 through 5 across all 3 buildings, remember all 3 buildings will come together, is 640-ish right now. So when you're looking at the elementary population, our class sizes range about 130 kids roughly, some smaller, some higher, but that's about the average. Kindergarten and preschool, the plan would be to put them into the Bucher School in an early childhood or early elementary school model. The Bucher Schools already has a lot of the pieces of the puzzle that you need. Classrooms that are close together, bathrooms that are already sized for the little ones, and kind of the easy flow of the L shape of the building, so kids aren't really having to go very far to get services, like to get to the CAF or the library or the nurse's office. So I hope
So
that
the number
helped.
is 640, not,
Correct,
okay, I
correct.
didn't add Wenham. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's the one thing some people miss. It's Cutler, Winthrop, and Bucher 1 through 5, which is about 645 students. They would be moved in a new building, and then the existing 7 kindergarten classrooms, and currently there are 2 preschool classrooms. Sometimes we have 3, depending on the year. So those 9 or 10 rooms would fit perfectly into the Bucher building in the structure that's it's set up.
Thank you.
Trent? Oh. Go ahead, let's do here and then we'll.
This is Dan Ojakanovich, Wenham Finance Committee. Is the current estimate still out there? It's a $150 million project with about $50 million potentially reimbursable. Is that still the same ballpark that we're operating off of, or have things gotten
That was the
substantially better?
last, that's kind of been the last thing that was ever discussed. We'll get an actual number in December. Once we get the actual estimates and the actual estimates as they apply to the reimbursable costs, we'll know the exact number. So that's why we're kind of anxious for December to get here too, so that we can have those numbers to say to people, here's the final building cost and here's the reimbursable from the state. But it runs based on particular rooms, the reimbursable cost. We've had several meetings with the MSBA in which we looked at our building floor plans, and we're able to add a number of rooms into the reimbursable costs because of our specialized special ed programs. We have several of them housed at the Winthrop School that are specific to certain neurodiversities, and it gives us the opportunity to gain classrooms where otherwise they wouldn't have reimbursed them. So we're actually anxious for that number as well, so we can get that out to the public.
Hi, Trent Honda, Hamilton School Committee. I had a question similar to, but slightly different than Jared's, which is the 740 number. It was stated as up to 740. Is that the maximum capacity for the proposed building?
So it's the maximum capacity at the Department of Education student model level of 22 students per classroom. Currently, at the elementary level, we have 20 kids in each of our classrooms. So if we were just to move everybody over there, we'd still have capacity for about another 65, 68 kids, depending on how the population changes. We have been gaining elementary population too along the way. And one of the hallmarks of the MSBA program is they say not only design a building, but also identify places where if you had to down the road, 15 years from now, expand, you have to identify those places in the plan. So that gets done as part of the design process.
So just to that point, the building as proposed would open in 2028, right?
Correct.
So if we assume that the growth from 2020 to 2024 is the same from 2020 to 2028, that would be about an 8.5% growth in the elementary school population. Brings us to 695 students, which is 45 off the maximum capacity.
Correct.
What is the plan for if we need room for 46 students or 146 students?
Yeah, so there are currently classrooms within the facility so in each neighborhood there are 7 classrooms. There are special ed spaces, there are specialized resource rooms. A number of those spaces can be shifted to be used depending on your population at the time. So your special ed population hovers right around, in this district, right around 18.5%, 19%. So we look at that and look at how that fits the need for rooms. So there are classroom spaces. You also get larger classroom spaces, so you can add more than 20 or 21 or 22 kids in a classroom, which is an opportunity in the bigger spaces, where in some classrooms we have, I know of a an elementary classroom that has 23 kids in it, and it's in a small room. It's tight, so it does give us the opportunity to go beyond the design limit of 22 per room.
So just so I'm following and not getting it wrong. So right now we are at 20 students per classroom?
In the elementary level, yeah. If you look at the overall averages, which will be presented tomorrow night, there are 20 across the elementary.
Okay. And then the proposed new building, we'd move to 22 as the estimated maximum capacity for each of the classrooms.
That's how it's designed based on the MSBA structure, but we would just basically move the kids we have to that building. With whatever change we had. Some classes may be 17, some might be 21. So it's like we have now. We have some kindergarten classrooms that are 15, and some, I think fourth grade's our largest group with 21s and 22. So it depends on the classes going through. You'll see waves of total numbers. Like you currently can see waves of numbers from 135, I think, is our largest overall grade level at the elementary, and I think you'll get down to, I think, 117 is one of our smallest. So you get that shift and that wave, so you have the flexibility within the building to move groups of kids around. So it makes it helpful.
So it sounds like 740 then isn't the maximum capacity. It's the maximum capacity.
It's a maximum design under the department, the Mass MSBA. When you look at just their numbers, they're giving you a number based on 22 students per classroom.
So do we know what the maximum? I guess what I'm trying to get to is there a number of students after which we would have to add space to the current building as planned?
Yeah, I guess it would depend on the grade level. So as you start looking at grade levels, because of the flexibility of the building, you can move grade levels around. So you can integrate second, third, and fourth grade into a neighborhood and use a mentor model, for instance. So you don't have to have exactly 7 of each class. Like right now, one of our classes is only 6, and the other 4 are 7 classrooms. So those shifts also give you an extra room to be able to shift around. But you could add, if you were at capacity at 35 rooms, 22 kids per room, you could easily add 2 more across those 35 rooms, but it's never that smooth. You don't get exactly the same number of kids in every single grade level showing up.
So to your mind, and this is my last question.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
The ideal number of students for this is 740 as a max. Does that, beyond which, does that begin to degrade the student experience in your perspective?
I don't believe so. I think because of the way the building is designed, you have the opportunity to make those shifts, and you're going to have some classrooms that'll have 21 or 22, and some classes that'll have 18 or 19. And I think the reality of some of the growth, if you see, we're in a down year right now with our preschool. We only have 2 preschools. Next year, we'll probably have 2 again. The following year, we could have 3, which bumps up our kindergarten. So we're kind of balanced along the way. We're not looking for this giant takeoff of an increase in students with the project. But there is room for more than 740. It's just the design limit of the state is 740 based on that 22 number. Because our original class size model, and if I remember, we submitted for 23 because that was our original class size model when we looked at it across the district. So the state in our model is really 1 student off, but that gives you the opportunity to put another 30 plus students in classrooms. So we have the advantage of, in our district, of small class sizes. When you look at it right now, we have an average of 20 across the elementary schools and 19 across the entire school district, which is probably not comparable when you start to look at surrounding districts and what their class sizes would be compared to us. We actually have, that's a huge advantage for us.
That's helpful, thank you.
Yep.
Rosie, go ahead. Oh, you definitely need a mic. It's really hard to hear in this room.
Hi, I have a few logistical questions. Rosemary Kennedy, Select Board Member in Hamilton. First question that I have is, it is anticipated that the children will all enter through the main entrance, is that correct?
That is not correct. No, that is one opportunity to come into the building. There's also a back side entry, which we use different models of school entry in each of our buildings, depending on where the buses drop off. Some kids are dropped in playgrounds. Some kids go from a playground to a gym. The way this building's designed is you have a front entry where bus students could come in. You have a rear entry where car students, it's designed to drop off. It has a little row for drop-offs, so the kids can enter right into the gym or the cafeteria space for breakfast, or an opportunity to move kids into the gym for rainy days or snowy days as well.
Okay, so there's more than one
Correct.
entrance to the school. Another question I have is, and I'm not thinking of the big picture, I'm looking at sort of operational issues when you talk about very young children
Yeah.
in a consolidated school. How do you plan for supervision of very young children? You talked about in and out of the classrooms that there are these areas outside in the hallway. So I'm wondering what you'll do to provide that adequate supervision.
Sure. Currently, we use a similar model in a couple of our schools where kids are in the classrooms and in the hallways. So interventions and supports occur, unfortunately, in hallways, on stages. Support personnel are working with those kids, so you have the classroom teacher who remains with the classroom kids. The beauty of our classroom designs in this building is there are 2 classrooms side by side with one small room that connects them together. The teachers can see kids working, either doing interventions or, you could have students that are doing more advanced work where they're grouped up in various group levels. So there's opportunities for people to be around all the time. We have a fairly substantial number of our education support professionals that work within our buildings. Kids are often seen by OTs, PTs, speech language pathologists, psychologists. So the beauty of kind of bringing everybody into one space gives us more eyes on all of our kids.
Okay, and so you're anticipating that you'll have very similar staff requirements in this consolidated school?
To some extent, I think the administrative requirements would change. You currently have 3 principals. You wouldn't need 3 principals. But your classroom teachers, you basically would move them in their class into each classroom, maintaining the same viability.
Okay. And then finally, one other question is, you're planning maintenance on a large new consolidation and the Bucher School, correct?
Clarify that for me. Mean it's long-term or current?
Well, long-term, because the Bucher School will still be in operation
Yep.
for K and pre-K. So in reality, you still will be supporting an entire additional school, is that correct?
That is
Okay.
correct.
Great,
And
thank
again,
you.
that's driven by the regional agreement, where we have to have one school in each of the communities. The Bucher would serve as a single school in the Wenham.
So I'm just anticipating maintenance costs for very expensive, state-of-the-art infrastructure in the new school. And yes, we will also have the Bucher School. And I look at that in conjunction with the anticipated increases. I realize this is preliminary, but in both Hamilton and Wenham, there is a substantial increase in the district's requirements just for day-to-day maintenance and operations of the schools. So I'm just looking at those numbers
Yeah, of
very
course.
carefully.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, can I ask another question?
Sure.
Dan Ojakanovich again. You just said something about the regionalization dictates that we have a school in each town limit, I guess. In a perfect world, if that weren't the case, would it be more efficient to house all those kids in one school?
Generally, it costs you more. The state doesn't cover the cost of preschool programs. Those costs are covered 100% by the districts. So when districts want to say, okay, we want to move a preschool program in and add more classrooms, then it becomes an expense that is on the burden of the towns, 100% with no reimbursement. So the regional agreement, in this case, we would meet the regional agreement requirements by keeping the Bucher School in Wenham. If we combined and consolidated anywhere else but in Wenham, we would have to consolidate one school in Wenham to be able to keep that model of one school, at least one school in each community. So,
No, I get that's the root of my question. If that weren't a requirement, would it be more cost effective to have them in a single building?
possibly. I just don't know what the MSBA would cover on the expense side. That's the only thing on the increased square footage. You're going to put in basically 10 more classrooms. So it's really would depend on, again, the reimbursements along the way.
Sorry, then a follow-up to her question. Is there a capital cost coming in the next 5 years to retrofit Bucher to make it what it needs to be in order to accommodate the pre-K and K?
So one of the things we've been doing along the kind of the recent timeline is doing things like asbestos abatement. We just completed every classroom this past summer, redoing the gymnasium, upgrading the sound system. We're upgrading the PA system. So the things that we need are already in place, kind of the essentials, if you will. Realistically, when you're looking at it, you could move your preschool and your K kids into that building tomorrow and it would function. I would, however, add something like some fencing in the back to contain our little ones that go out, just as we do over at the Winthrop. We have a fencing area for pre-K kids just because they tend to like to take off. But that would really be the one addition. If you were to say, let's move in tomorrow, you could pull it off. You have all of the essentials that you need in this building, including bathroom spaces that are very similar to what our youngest learners use now at the Winthrop.
Okay.
Thanks. I'm Alex Rindles on the Hamilton FinCom. During the design phase of the project, was there any opportunity for the community's input on the exterior aesthetic of the building, similar to how recently Hamilton did like a community survey for the master plan downtown? With different aesthetic options?
The aesthetics went through the building committee. All of that process goes through the school building committee. I know the architect spent quite a bit of time bopping around town, taking pictures of things like horse barns and local kind of larger buildings to get an idea of how to match some of the scale. And one of the things that, on the Cutler School, if you look at, is Roman brick, which is a longer, skinnier brick stack. They looked at those types of things, tried to find different textures within the community to bring into the exterior part of the building.
Did the community specifically have input into that?
Only the school building committee.
Okay.
All set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, next up on our agenda are the budgets. Do you want the school district to go first? Is that what you were saying?
Vinny's up first.
Okay. So I think if, on my agenda, I actually have Hamilton going first, but it sounds like maybe we're going to go to the school district first. Okay, does that work for everyone? Okay. Is that okay? Yeah, yeah. Okay, good. While Vinny is getting set up, I just want to take a moment to just say to the public how much I appreciate your willingness to sit and listen, and I hope that you feel that the people that are your representatives here ask some good questions. And I encourage you, if you have further questions about that topic, first of all, I encourage you to stay and listen to the budget presentation. And I encourage, if you have further questions, these are all people here, reach out to us. We're all willing to hear from you and to respond to you. So thank you for your willingness to move through that patiently. Thank you. Where'd he go?
Was
Joe
back
just
there.
has to go to the little boy's room.
Where's Vinny?
He dropped his computer and disappeared.
Okay.
What's up? Oh, did we decide Hamilton was going first?
No.
No.
We had all talked before to
No.
change it up a little.
Okay.
Would you like my joke of the day?
Is he on the floor back there?
Exactly. Talk amongst yourselves.
Just making a solid snack.
Where's the water supply?
Right behind you. I have my big bottle. It's just it's a long process.
Next agenda, I'll be in the building 2 minutes for Vinny's transition.
2024 school.
What? Oh. You all right over there?
God, he's going through hell. That's just so awful.
We're all doing our best here. My best may not be good enough, but. Well, people.
Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. I'd like to give a special thanks to Joe, Steve, Jeff, Wendy, Eric, and all of the school committee members for helping us through this budget process and for their future work over the next 3 months working on it and refining the numbers as we move along through the process. Just a few items I want to mention. You do have a printout of the presentation with you with a few handouts. It's about a 16 slide deck. I will not be going over the whole presentation, just a few of the first slides, but obviously if you have any questions during it, please don't hesitate to ask. If anyone wants to dive deeper into the numbers, I would point you to the school committee's agenda for tomorrow night. There is a more detailed presentation. I believe it's somewhere between 50 and 60 slides where we dive deeper into the numbers. We go through school by school, line by line. Literally, if there was one line item that changed by $30, I broke that out on the school committee agenda's presentation, not on tonight. So if you want to look deeper into the numbers, please don't hesitate to look there. In addition, the school committee has not seen this yet. Tomorrow will be the first time they see it due to some scheduling difficulties. We had to schedule this meeting ahead of their first initial look at it, so some of these numbers, not only will you be seeing for the first time, but they will as well. Our finance subcommittee has seen them, but the full committee has not seen a lot of these numbers. Tonight, I'm really going to be focusing on the big overall picture and not diving deep into the numbers because we really want you to focus on the overall difference from one year to the next and not really dive too deep into the numbers because they're going to change between now and the 3 months when we finally set the budget. We realize this is going to be a very difficult budget year, so we know these numbers are going to be refined. So I'm really going to be doing a high-level look, again, only looking at the first few slides of the presentation. Excuse me. So what the district looks at when we first go to build our budget is a bunch of different things. In certain order, the biggest thing, without a doubt, is our collective bargaining agreements. This is where we go to see things like our COLA adjustments, our step increases, and our column and lane changes for any eligible employees. Next, we look at our retirement and staff turnover for some salary savings. Historically, how this works is when an employee retires or if a turnover happens, they're usually a more seasoned employee that kind of falls deeper in the salary schedule and has a larger salary than somebody else. When they retire or turnover happens, we have a tendency to hire in a less seasoned employee or someone lower, kind of higher up on the salary scale, not making as much money. So when we build our budget, we really look for salary savings in these two areas. The next big item is our health insurance and enrollment changes. Historically, in the past few budget cycles, we've been hit with high premium rate increases. I do anticipate a high premium rate increase for FY26. However, I was able to negotiate a much lower premium rate increase in FY25 that we originally budgeted for. Therefore, those savings are being rolled into 26. So for FY26, there really isn't much in terms of growth for health insurance. So that is good news, but that is one big ticket item that we always look at every year. Our next biggest thing is our transportation contracts. Now for FY26, we do not have a transportation contract in place. The one we have runs for 3 years and ends in FY25. Historically, the first year of our transportation contracts is usually a larger than normal increase. I have built in a projection here, but again, that is just a projection. We won't have those final numbers until after the budget is passed in February. The next big item that we look at is our out-of-district tuition projections. Historically, we always try to be conservative in this area. We always try to anticipate at least 1 or 2 more out-of-district placements throughout the year. This is due because of the volatility. You can have move-ins or you can have new out-of-placements. These have a tendency to cost a little bit more. So to cover these costs and to be able to supply the education that the students need, we usually are conservative, again, in this area, and add in maybe 1 or 2 additional out-of-district placements. The next thing we look at is we meet with all building principals and department heads and go through any new requests they have, and also look at the condition of our buildings and grounds. Is any of our equipment failing? Do we need to replace it or do any sort of maintenance during the next budget cycle? Kind of from a bigger picture perspective, we also review our district's enrollment shift and just look at the general state of both our communities. What's going on in Hamilton, what's going on in Wenham, and what's going on with the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School District, to take that into consideration when we go to build our budget for the following years. So when I look at this budget, Although there are substantial increases, there really isn't much new from FY25 to 26. It really is a lot of us rolling the budget forward. The biggest things we will go over in a minute, but overall there really are not that many changes. But the biggest difficulties we've seen for FY26, there are two of them. The first one that we do all the time is our enrollment shift. This is the population of how many students reside in Hamilton versus how many students reside in Wenham. For FY26, Hamilton's student population stayed exactly flat. There was no increase or decrease, while Wenham's increased by 13 students. So what this ends up causing is $137,000 shifts towards Wenham and away from Hamilton. So saying it in other words, if we were to level fund our budget with no increase, just roll it forward from one year to the next, Wenham would still see an increase of $137,000. Wenham would see a decrease. For Wenham, that represents a 1.1% increase right out of the gate. So when you're looking at the budget, at the end result, Wenham's assessment, whatever that percentage is, 1.1% is directly attributed to the enrollment shift that really is out of our hands. It just depends on how many students live in each district. The second item, it is not the second, it is without a doubt the biggest difficulty and the biggest item. It really is just our enrollment shift is the first thing we look at, then we move on to our collective bargaining agreements. When we built the FY25 budget, we only had one of our 5 contracts settled. Therefore, I didn't know our COLAs, I didn't know our step increases. So for FY25, we built in a 3% COLA increase for all of our contracts. But if you remember and you rewind back a year ago, it's pretty much exactly what's going on today. In the news was what was going on in Newton and what was going on in Woburn. To be completely honest, I didn't think 3% was enough, so I tried to be conservative in other areas of the budget in anticipation that we weren't going to be able to settle at 3%. So what we ultimately ended up with is somewhere between a 3 and 4% funds reserved for COLA for FY25. But at this point, all of our contracts are settled and the range varies. We are anywhere between a 3% and a 19% COLA, depending on what group you're in, what contract you represent, what position you have, and where you fall within that salary schedule. So one person could be receiving a 3%, while another person could be receiving a 19%, again, depending on where you land. With that, I'm seeing an average of about an 8% increase. Hold on. And stop me at any time if you have a question. So that with an 8% increase on average. So if you think about that, that is double to a little bit more of the COLA that we actually built into FY25. And it is over 5 times the amount that we saw in FY24. FY24's COLA was 1.5%. So that is what is causing, obviously, these large increases for FY26. So with that, we are $1.1 million shy on our FY25 budget, which means that $1.1 million has to be made up in the 26 budget. So right now, we're funding the COLAs that we didn't fund in FY25 through the 26 budget. But like all of our collective bargaining agreements, you then have to factor in your FY26 COLA. So our FY26 contractual changes amount to another $1.3 million. Combined, that is $2.4 million in our collective bargaining agreements alone. If you look at this just in the collective bargaining agreements, that represents a 5.3% increase over our FY25 budget. And if you look in that budget document, it represents 70% of our overall FY26 increase. That is one item alone is representing 70% of our overall increase for FY26. If I add in the next biggest item or the next biggest increase, which is our out-of-district tuitions and our out-of-district transportations, which at the moment we're projecting an increase of over over $500,000. With those two items, I've accounted for $3 million, and our budget tonight is at $3.3 million. So with those two items alone, I've accounted for 90% of our overall increase for FY26, which is why I started with there really isn't a lot that's changed this year. It really is all related to our collective bargaining agreements and trying to fund the shortfall from FY25 along with the funding for FY26. So we know we have a lot of, yep, you can ask, yep. I like it when people ask in the middle. It gives me a second to catch my breath.
Can you just clarify the teacher's
John, can you talk into the mic so everybody can hear you? Thank you.
Can you just clarify the outcome of the teacher's contract?
Meaning the COLA?
Yeah,
Or-
and just high level. So the point is, the school district has negotiated, and has it been approved on both sides, the district and the?
I can answer that. Okay, so it's actually on the agenda tomorrow night for the school committee to vote
Right.
on it. It's been ratified by the union.
The union has ratified it.
Correct, as of today.
Okay. So the optimist in me says the school committee will probably ratify it. I mean, who knows? But
I can't speak for the committee, but it's
Right.
certainly been recommended by the negotiations subcommittee.
Right. So when we met last week, the point that I made was, it sounds like the teachers will be positive, and I'm guessing the school committee will be positive of this contract.
That's what I anticipate.
Unlike what's going on in Gloucester and
Correct.
Beverly and
That
whatever.
is my understanding
Right.
and my interpretation, yes.
And Vinny, we also talked about last year's increase in the school budget was relatively modest, at like 1%, all right? This year, it's, at this point, is quite a bit higher. My view is that it probably will, between the 2 years, will average out to, I don't know, maybe 4%, something like that.
Correct. Our FY25 should have been larger
Right.
to fund those.
Right. So as I think about it, it's good to have a memory of, okay, what transpired last year. Last year's increase should have been higher, or could have been higher, because we had estimated it more. But anyway, what I'm trying to do is look over 2 years as we try to digest this budget. But the good news is the contract has been resolved, and
That is,
hopefully,
in fact, very good news.
hopefully
yes.
the teachers, the parents, and the taxpayers will be happy. And the quality of the school hopefully will be positively impacted by all that news. So that's sort of how I sort of framed the conversation from last week. I don't know if I'm off base or not, but thanks for that update, Vinny.
Yep.
Can I just make a comment?
Of course. Yep.
No offense to John's reframing, I get it, spreading over 2 years, but your comment, Vinny, that, nothing has changed, I think just our general sense that the contract negotiation is a foregone conclusion is kind of how you get to the fact that nothing changed, but it's a massive change. It's a massive increase. And to the taxpayers being happy or not, a 4% a year increase in the taxpayers' taxes leads to people moving out of the town. So, just want to clarify.
Sure.
Yep. A lot of changes dollars, not so much staffing and programmatic. Yes. So throughout the rest of the presentation that I'm not going to go into detail, I do break out our enrollment shift between Hamilton and Wenham. I also break out all of our changes in revenues and all of our changes in expenses. The last two handouts in the deck break out any changing in staffing for FY26. The request right now only goes up 0.8 of a position. And then behind that, again, is the breakout of all major expense categories, plus or minus $10,000. That does the detailed part of the school committee's budget, school district presentation. I can answer more questions if you have any, but.
I have a sort of adjacent question, which is out-of-district placements have come up the last couple of years. Do those primarily sit in the elementary, middle, or high school?
I can answer it, but I just want to take it off so you don't see what I put on my
Oh,
slide, because it has names on
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah,
I
I
can
don't-
answer you, just give me one
And
second.
the follow-on to that question was, is there some anticipation that should we have a more accommodating elementary school, we would be able to pull out of some of these outplacements?
Some of them, not all of them. Some of them are more severe than we could handle
Okay.
within our system. So some of the issues like medically fragile kids need a nurse, they need assistance on and off the bus. Those are really high expenses that we, and you get one or two kids that may be in that category. It's
Yep.
actually easier to put them in a program that can meet all of their needs, where we'd struggle to meet the child's needs.
And has the standard for what it takes to qualify for an outplacement changed? And do we expect to see an increase in outplacements similar to what, Vinny, you're showing now?
Just to answer your first question, there's 6 in the elementary level and, 33 in the secondary. So it's mostly secondary.
Secondary being sixth
Sixth
through...
through
Okay.
higher, because we have to accommodate them beyond 12th grade.
Right, okay.
And to answer your other question, the standard is about the same. It hasn't really changed. The values of the neurodiversities are changing dramatically. We're seeing much more intense and difficult behaviors and issues at younger grade levels, which is a little bit alarming, but we kind of seen that coming out of COVID, and some of that is stuck with some kids along the way. So we're seeing mental health issues really driving some of that. So if you have a mental health issue coupled with a learning disability, it becomes a frustrating situation for that child to be able to fit in
Right.
the round peg square hole. So it's hard for kids to fit that process. So in the cases that we look at, we really try to find the best opportunity for kids to succeed, because ultimately we want all our kids to be here. Ultimately, I'd want every single kid to be in our buildings. It's just really not feasible with some of the needs that they have.
Yeah. And I know it's not a non-weighted average, but I'm just looking at like cost per child, which sits somewhere between like 10 and 18, depending on how you pull it. It looks like for outplacements, that cost is like somewhere in the 40s to 50 per kid.
More.
To 50,000, I believe it's more than that.
Yeah, it's more than that.
And you anticipate a substantial increase in FY26.
For FY26, our out-of-district placements is projected to grow, I think, about 240,000. I believe it's on the last sheet in that handout. And out-of-district transportation is about another 260, I believe, at the moment.
Okay.
And if
Still
you
need to be refined.
Go back to last year. Remember, we were fighting with the state over the 14% automatic increase that
Yeah,
they
no, I
gave
remember that.
all the out-of-district placements. This year, it's 3.67%. A little more realistic, but still more than we anticipated. It's generally been 2% along the way. So we still have to look at that. And that's basically a rate that any out-of-district private group can say, yeah, we're going to raise right to that rate automatically. And if you have a kid that's in a $150,000 placement, it's automatically going up that 3.7%.
Got it. All right. Just for my own knowledge, thank you.
Jared Ward, I apologize, I'm new at some of this nomenclature, and maybe I'm getting ahead of the game here, but I'm looking at the next is offsets and revenues, and the next is offsets and revenues without E&D, which, by the way, I don't know what that means, but there's some line items here. If somebody could translate circuit breaker offset, that's a big number.
Yep, so circuit breaker offset is directly related to our out-of-district tuitions. The state does fund a portion of our out-of-district tuitions. There's a formula that they use to determine how much they're going to reimburse us, but that's a state reimbursement for us paying for out-of-district placements.
Thank you. Read Chapter 70, base aid.
That's the aid the state gives every community.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
excess and deficiency returned, excess and deficiency offset by expenses?
Yeah, so the easiest way I can explain that, I don't like using this term, but it's kind of the profit you had at the end of the year. It's how much money you have left over from the prior year.
Is it sort of like free cash?
It's exactly, it's your free cash, yes, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So you had, or you're forecasting $1.3 million of free cash?
It would be about 2 million. It's the combination.
Those
Yep.
two?
It's those
Okay.
two, correct.
So how do you arrive at your free cash estimate as to what you need for free cash? I ask because we're struggling with that in the Wenham FinCom as to what the appropriate percentage, is to hold.
So I'm not sure how it works on the town side, but for the school district, we are not allowed to hold anything over 5%. The remainder has to be returned or placed in our budget. That's what that 2 million is. That's everything over our threshold.
What is your threshold? Is it
5% of our budget. So round numbers, it's about 2 million.
So the 5% is a discretionary figure?
It's a state maximum. We are not allowed to hold more than that.
But anything
below is our
up
discretion,
to that
correct.
is a discretionary figure. Is that correct?
Anything below that would
Below
be,
that, which would reflect some presumably some utilization requirements, in the future, in future periods. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, you definitely need one, please. Thank you.
It'd be helpful to get a sense of, so I see the line item for school choice, about $300,000 or so. So just doing some very quick math, I might have done it wrong, it's about $4,000 per pupil coming in versus the $50,000 roughly going out. Are those numbers right? Like, can you kind of walk me through how that process actually works? Because if we're paying $10,000 to $20,000 for a Wenham student or a Hamilton student, coming in it's $4,000. If you go out, it's 50. I just don't understand.
So it's 5,000 to come in. We receive 5,000 per student from another community to come to the district. We do have a bigger than normal 12th grade class that will be graduating out. So I lowered it by, I believe, about 4 students off the top of my head. So that might be where you're coming up with the 4,000 number. We're just anticipating that a bigger class goes out and a smaller class comes in. Our school choice is slowly dwindling numbers. So it's 5,000 for each kid coming in. What was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
Well, I guess just understanding, like, what, it's 5,000 coming, is that just like the number from the state?
That's the state, yep, that's a state number that they set, that they haven't changed in decades. We do have school choice out, so that's students who live in Hamilton Wenham who might attend Beverly Public Schools. That's an expense within the budget, though. It's not listed in detail.
And that's
on
the same $5,000?
Yes, we get charged $5,000 to send a student out. They do have a special ed increment, so if the student does receive additional services, it might be a little bit more than 5,000, but it depends on what services they're receiving. Generally speaking, it's 5,000.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. All right. Looks like, thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
And I believe Wenham is next.
I had sent a thing over to Janelle, but I think everybody has a handout as well.
Yep.
So Jeff Soulard, Wenham Finance Director. We've got a really short presentation here. If you go to the first page, we're just going to walk through kind of our issues and challenges for FY26. Probably very similar to everybody else in the room. We're very early in our budget process. We won't actually meet with departments for about a week or so. So our budget is very preliminary at this point. It's going to develop over the next 6 to 8 weeks and will likely materially change from what you see here tonight. The biggest issue the town of Wenham is facing is that while you are just wrapping up your contractual negotiations, we are negotiating with 3 of our 4 unions, police, fire, and our AFSCME, DPW, and clerical folks. So that's going to have a big impact on our FY26 budget, and that's really kind of tough to quantify right now. in terms of the direction for our budget for FY26, both the Select Board and the Finance and Advisory Committee are looking to avoid an operational override for FY 2026. And we, in this presentation, will only deal with the operating budget. Typically in Wenham, our capital costs are handled with free cash, so they don't really figure into this part of our equation. Flipping to our next page, I'm just going to hit some of the highlights of our budget for 26. You know, as we just heard from Vinny, I think maybe my number's off just a little bit here from, it's changed a little since last week. But, you know, the big ticket item for us is a 10.5% increase to the Hamilton Wenham school budget. You know, along with the apportionment shift to Wenham, that's going to be about a $1.2 million addition to our budget this year. Historically, we have about a 3% increase at Essex Tech, so that's a small, you know, $9,000 adjustment for us or so. We've got a couple of small kind of administrative adjustments that need to be made in our budget for budgets that have been historically underfunded. It's another $21,000 or so. The library, which is joint library shared with Hamilton, is one of the few departments who has already submitted their budget to us. And they are up at about 1.6%, mainly driven by contractual obligations because that union actually is settled, and that's about a $17,000 increase to us. Just to sort of lay out what we've said to our departments, they've been instructed to essentially level fund across the board. They understand that we are likely going to have increases due to the contractual negotiations, but they've been told to try and find offsets to those increases as best they can to still end up at a net zero level funded for FY26. At this point, the library made a pretty good faith effort to do that and came in, you know, under 2%. So, you know, hopefully we can work with them a little bit more, but, you know, generally that's what we're going to be looking for from our departments. Joint recreation, small increase there, same thing, just sort of underfunded in the past, sort of catching up. For the town, much like I'm sure for Hamilton and for the school, the big ticket items for us, pension, health insurance, and then our general liability. We start the year every year assuming those are going to go up about 10%. Typically they come in a little bit under that, but to be conservative, we start at the higher 10% number. That's about a $240,000 increase. And the final sort of bigger ticket item we have is we are on an OPEB funding schedule in Wenham. Historically, we just increase our OPEB contribution by about $10,000 each year, and that will you know take place again for FY26, moving us to $110,000. Generally speaking, the last note here, all of our budgets are targeting level funding. We have built in sort of a conservative estimate for union contracts and some other, you know, expenses that are going to increase for FY26, but right now it's really more of kind of a reserve placeholder than it is sort of specific numbers attached to budget line items. The final page, you know, we just tried to come up with a one-page quick, you know, high-end summary here to show you sort of where we're at and where our, you know, increases are coming. So if you look at the top line, you sort of the town operating budget is going to go up about $560,000, roughly a 4.9% increase. Hamilton Wenham Regional School, as we just talked about, that's about a, you know, $1.25 million increase, or roughly 10% for us, all in. $8,700 for Essex Tech, small 3% increase there. So all in, our expenses are, you know, we're estimating are going to go up a little over $1.8 million for the year. As we walk through this chart, you're going to see we're assuming, you know, our amount to overlay at $200,000 is going to stay static. For now, we're assuming our state aid net of any offsets is going to remain the same for FY26. We are looking at approximately $140,000, $150,000 of increased local receipts, which means the net amount that we're going to have to raise by taxation is going to have to go up about 1.6, almost $1.7 million. Add on top of that, we've got levy limit growth, Prop 2.5 growth, and we also have some excess levy capacity from the prior year that is going to ultimately net to us needing about $670,000. there, or increasing about $670,000 there. So the end result for us is that as the budget stands right now with, the information you've given us here tonight, we are at about $620,000 over our levy limit for FY '26 at this point in time. And I would just add, that is likely to change. I mean, we are in negotiations, so it's sort of tough to know where those will go. But clearly, we're going to need to do some work and hopefully work with the school to close that gap, because I think most of us around the tables here agree that, we don't want an operating override in the same year as a debt exclusion override. But certainly on our side of the table, I think, between all of us, we can work to get that 620 down to a non-override in Wenham.
Thank you. Questions for Wenham?
I just have one. Does this 620, it does not include any COLAs for the 3 unions, or it does?
So we've just built in a fixed cost, sort of is built in there, yeah. I mean, much like you last year, could the 620 become 720, or could it become 520? Probably not 520, but, it could go higher. But yeah, I think we feel comfortable we're within striking distance at that number.
Thank you.
Oh, of course. Other questions for Wenham? Thank you. All right, Hamilton, take it away.
Thank you. Much like Wenham, we're in very preliminary stages of our budget formation. I'd like to point out that this meeting is 9 days earlier than it was last year, so we're quite a little bit. The numbers that you'll see, Wendy will go over those in a few minutes for us. They're very preliminary, and they look like big numbers, but I assure you I'm not panicking yet. So we understand there's a lot of work to do still. First page. The FY26 budget remains a work in progress. Right now, our FY26 budget goals are a level service budget to deliver all the same services to Hamilton residents as in prior years. We are very loosely projecting local revenues of $40,649,442. And we're projecting expenses totaling $45,392,809. I'd make a note here that the revenue projection does not include any funding from free cash or other outside sources. So at this point, the $5 million difference looks like a very big number, but when we balanced the budget for FY25, there were a number of other sources that went into balancing that, and those are not currently included in our revenue projection. I'm going to ask Wendy to kind of go through the brief expense summaries.
Okay, so the big picture, looking at each projected department level increase. The big picture is just to note that currently with the schools, it's, we're looking between the two schools at 9.4% increase, and overall the town is looking at a 3.2% increase. So we're hopeful that we can find some areas within each department of the town, and also with the school, to close that gap. Again, we're very preliminary. We don't even have all the department heads' figures yet. So, and when looking at the unclassified, we did go down because that held a significant amount of our union contract reserve last year. So, we were able to spread that among each department. But overall, we are looking at a $2.9 million change. Okay, so the pie chart always speaks volumes to people because it's very clear and easy to identify quickly where the spending is. And as I mentioned, the schools, you're at 61% of the overall budget. The unclassified is $6 million at 13%. And the unclassified, just as a reminder, that's your health insurance, your pension, and the insurance for the town, your OPEB, and any kind of transfers to stabilizations to meet the reserve limits. And then looking at public safety, you're at about $4.5 million, or 10% of the budget. and general government is 2.8 million, or 6% of the budget. Public Works, 2.76% of the budget, and then your recreation and culture, which includes your library, is 1.2 million, or 3%, and your health and human services is 1%, just under 500,000.
So, these are FY 2026 assumptions and concerns. We're currently running, as I said, in very rough numbers, $5 million in the red. We don't expect that to stay the case, obviously. We're carrying a 10% increase for insurance and pension increases. We're assuming a level spend on capital projects, but we recognize right now that that may not be possible. We included negotiated contract increases for all of our employees. We had closed all 5 unions last year in the current fiscal year, so we're good for the next 2 years as far as we know what our employee costs are going to be. Our assumption is no override, no operational override, just as Wenham suggested. We don't think it would be a good idea to look for an operational override in the same year we were looking for debt exclusion. And it assumes a loss of revenue for a couple of our IMAs. Some of our intermunicipal agreements have modified, and some of our partners are no longer with us. So we always count that in the revenue side of projection, so that's showing a loss of revenue for us.
All right, thank you. Questions for Hamilton? Okay. All right. Looks like we might have done it. All right.
I was gonna adjourn the FinCom meeting.
Oh,
There it is.
excellent. Why don't we start at this side of the room
There you
then?
go.
Go for it.
So I'd like to take a motion to adjourn the FinCom meeting.
So moved?
All right. Those in favor? All right, FinCom is adjourned.
All right, I believe you're not actually called to order. We'll go over here. Wenham?
Looking for a motion to close the Wenham FinCom at 8:15. I see a first and a second. Second?
Aye. Second.
Aye. Looks unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, all right, and the select board? No. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I move a motion that we that we adjourn our meeting.
Do I have a second? Second. Second by Amy Kumberger. All those in favor? And that is unanimous of the members present, and we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.